Josh Frydenberg. Treasurer, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. New figures are out today just showing how bad things are in Victoria following its lockdown. Is it as bad as you feared?
It's worse. It's a terrible situation in Victoria. Up to 400,000 people will lose their job or see their hours reduced down to zero. The hit to the national economy is somewhere between $10 to $12 billion. The figures that we've put out today indicate that spending is down by 30% in Victoria, whereas around the rest of the country it's down by just 3%. We've seen thousands of people added to the unemployment queues in Victoria, whereas we're seeing a recovery in other parts of the country. And this is obviously the proof point for what happens when you have blunders like we've seen in hotel quarantine. The testing and the tracing in Victoria has not been up to the standard of other states. And what businesses are looking for and what Victorian families are looking for now are messages of hope, messages of to explain the road out as opposed to a longer road in. And they want to know, when can their businesses reopen? When can people get back to work? When can families be reunited? And when can kids get back to school?
Some of the, probably the figure that surprised me the most, Treasurer, we want to get your thoughts on is for the March quarter, where you suggest that 60%, or Treasury suggests 60% of 1.75 million JobKeeper recipients will be from Victoria. That's a long way away. I mean, why are you expecting things to be so bad so far away?
Because what we're seeing now is a huge hole being created in the Victorian economy with the stage 4 lockdowns. They're very significant and the impact will be felt for some time. That's why the quicker we get a plan from the Victorian government to ease the restrictions as the virus is got under control, the better that our economy nationally and our economy in Victoria will be.
So it's going to need some serious repair work here. Might you have to extend JobKeeper again?
Well, we have extended it and we have expanded it with a commitment of around an extra $30 billion. At $101 billion, Pete, this is the single largest economic support program that any Australian government has ever undertaken. In the words of the Governor of the Reserve Bank, it's a remarkable program. It's helping to keep employees and employers together. And that is vitally important, not just in Victoria, but also around the rest of the country, particularly in those sectors that have been hardest hit by the closure of the international borders like aviation and tourism.
Well, but might you need to extend, if things are going to be still bad in the March quarter next year, might you need to expand beyond March next year?
Well, we've always said it was a temporary program. It's a targeted program. It's demand-driven. But with changes to the employer turnover tests as well as the employee eligibility tests, we've allowed more people to come on the program. And as you know, there'll be more people from Victoria on JobKeeper than from the rest of the country combined.
Should the Victorian state government have to chip in more?
Well, they do need to spend more. That's the unequivocal message from the Governor of the Reserve Bank. The Governor has made it clear that the states need to spend more to boost aggregate demand to help the recovery. To put it in perspective for you, Pete, we at the Commonwealth level have committed $314 billion. That's around 15.8% of GDP. In contrast, the states have contributed some $48 billion, or around 2.4% of gross state product. They need to spend more, they know it, whether it's on infrastructure projects, whether it's assisting local government, or whether it's in more payroll and land tax relief. They need to step up here and support their communities just as the federal government is.
Obviously, this is going to mean this might just be, I guess, a curtain raiser to the national accounts coming out on Wednesday. What are you expecting there?
A significant fall in GDP, the largest single quarterly fall that Australia has seen, and that's a result of both the demand and the supply shock as a result of COVID-19.
The Australian Industry Group today is calling for tax cuts that are slated to begin in 2022, Treasurer, to be in place from January 1 next year. Is that an option?
we're working through our options, whether it's in tax or other areas. What we have before the Parliament right now is an important piece of legislation to extend the JobKeeper payments, but particularly to ensure that there is industrial relations and workplace flexibility that goes alongside JobKeeper. It's important that that legislation passes the Parliament this week, because we know from JobKeeper recipients, namely the businesses who are supporting their employees through JobKeeper, that those IR flexible arrangements have been critical to them being able to keep their doors open.
Okay, just finally and briefly, Treasurer, the Health Services Union, they want to increase the Medicare levy to be able to increase funding to the aged care sector. Would you be open to that at all?
We have no plans to do that. Our focus is on lower taxes, as your previous question indicated. We do commit to spending more on aged care by the tune of an extra $1 billion a year. That's what we've been doing.
Okay.
We've been spending by more than $1 billion extra a year with aged care, and of course we recognise that this is a continued area of importance to the economy and to the community.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us as always.
Bye-bye.